Welcome to the Civility Clinic, where people with lived experience are the experts. Please welcome Adriana Mallozzi and Mariella Paulino-Peralta. Thank you guys so much for being here. And we also have our producer and my co-host, Audrey AJ Murray. Thank you for being here.
I'm Adriana Mallozzi, the co-founder of the A11y Conference. We have a theme, and the theme is people with disabilities taking action. It's also the week before election time. And since it's 3 days, each day is going to be a different focus. So the first day will be the past, and we'll learn more about the historical side of the disability rights movement. The second day will be the present. And then the third day will be the future, where we really want to focus on how we see our world being more accessible in the future and what we can do to make that happen.
When new people join the movement, like I was new a couple of years ago, I didn't even appreciate how much history there's been behind disability advocacy, and just, like there's roots in the civil rights movement, and there's roots in the LGBTQ movement, and there's this intersectionality of all these issues. But disability pride, it was front and center when the ADA got passed back in 80s and 90s. And I feel like there's been a resurgence recently, now that we're all more connected, we're learning about each other's access needs. So just really spot on with the conference theme. Do you have any sort of dream speakers or kind of events or something that you would really want to happen, if not this year, maybe in a future conference?
I dream of meeting the organizers of the Deaf President Now movement. There is a university known as Gallaudet University. Gallaudet is really the mecca of deaf culture. It is a university based out in Washington, D.C. It is the mecca of deaf culture, deaf history, American Sign Language. And 2 years before the ADA was signed, the university had to get a new college president. And so the university had 3 candidates to choose from that the Board of Trustees had selected. 2 of them were individuals who had hearing disabilities, who were familiar with American Sign Language, who were a part of the deaf community. And a third person was a woman who was not deaf, did not know American Sign Language, did not know anything about the deaf community at all. Instead of the 2 highly qualified people with hearing disabilities who were a part of this community, the Board of Trustees decided to go with the woman who did not have a hearing disability, was now part of the community, did not know American Sign Language. And the students, the staff, the professors, the alumni protested this decision. They locked the university, and they demanded that the college establish its first deaf president, which is really the reason behind the movement of Deaf President Now. And so this was such a shocking thing that happened during this time, because it had never happened before. And it really goes back to that idea of infantilization, paternalizing that happens within the community of people with disabilities. The students were able to overturn the decision by the Board of Trustees, and it was the first time that the university had its first deaf president. Mind you, this is a university that had been around for a couple hundred years. People with disabilities saw themselves as being able to be in a position of power and leadership. And that is one of the many other things that influenced the Americans with Disabilities Act 2 years later. So for me, one of my dream speakers would be one of the Deaf President Now activists. I've tried to get them for the last 2 years and been unsuccessful, but maybe this is the year that we get them. I also dream of inviting members of the Bush Family Foundation. So President Bush, who signed the ADA, would be a dream come true. But being able to have members of that community, like the inner circle of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the people that actually passed this legislation, that would be incredible. And there's so many other activists that are an advocates in the community. There is now DeMarco, who is a deaf activist and one of America's Next Top Model winners, who is, I'm a huge fan of him. There's Andrew Gursa, who is a huge activist for sexuality for people with disabilities. There are so many leaders and advocates whose stories are not being shared actually beyond just looking at the big picture and these big names. There are people, everyday people, who have never thought of themselves as leaders, who have never thought of how much value their lived expertise can bring to this conference. And at the end of the day, this conference is for them. This is going to be a conference to get those advocates who have been doing the work behind the scenes, on Instagram, on TikTok, to have a space where we create a space for them to just talk about their experiences. So we're going for those big names, but more than those big names, we're also going just for the everyday person who has a story to tell.
Adriana, do you have any dream speakers to invite?
Yeah, of course. The mother of the disability rights movement, as we all know, Miss Judy Hewitt, would be amazing to have, especially for our first day, as we talk about the past and as we talk about the history of the movement. I mean, she was there for it all, literally, and her story and the stories of the others, you know, that she was with, just hearing those stories it's just amazing. And I would love to have her be a part of this and be a speaker. I've had the privilege of interviewing Judy a couple times. So maybe, you know, I can get her to do this.
Yeah, you're already connected.
Judy, if you're watching,
Yeah.
be on the lookout for an email again.
She has her own podcast and interview panel.
Yes, I know.
Where is the conference going to be?
We are still exploring spaces. We have not secured the space yet. It's also going to be hybrid, so people can join virtually as well. And we are thinking beyond this year. So Mariella lives in New York City and I live in Boston. And so we are starting with New York, and then the next time we want to do it in Boston. And then we hope to expand from there and see how, you know, have people represent in different cities and have ambassadors. And we want this A11y conference to go all over the country. So we're starting small, and we'll see where it goes in the future. But Mariella and I think big, and I think it gets away from us a little too much, and we have to rein each other in. And I think that's why we work well together, because like I'll go off sometimes, or she'll go off, and each of us will be like, wait a minute, let's focus.
Step one.
Me and Dr. Stephanie.
I know, I was like, AJ, does this sound
know
familiar?
something about that. We know something about that.
That is so funny. It's such a similar experience. Like when you just meet someone who's like in the same headspace, you just kind of snowball with each other, and it just it gets really exciting. But yeah, you definitely got to bring each other back down to earth once in a while. And just some random thing that AJ and I had been talking about, because we do this YouTube channel, you know, it's a very similar mission where we have this platform, we want to share people's stories. And me coming from the healthcare field, I'm a physician. My goal is to teach my colleagues and like teach students about disability and, you know, all of its nuance, and not just medicalize and pathologize things. And AJ and I were like, we should make a video like tips for sex workers when they're working with disabled clients. So, I mean, that's just like a random thing that we were like, yes, let's put this on the list of 50 other videos that we're trying to make right now.
We are looking for speakers for the conference.
Okay.
And I saw some of the YouTube videos that you guys have put together. It would be an absolute honor to have you present. I think that it is really important to recognize not just people with disabilities, but also advocates doing the work, and advocates particularly who recognize their privilege in the spaces that they occupy. So medical professionals definitely need this sort of training, and this is the type of training that I think would be incredibly useful for them. I did a training just a couple years ago at the height of the COVID pandemic for medical professionals and audiologists, because I was going to my hearing equipment appointment and people were wearing masks and I was not able to follow along to what was being said. Or I would have an audiology appointment on Zoom. We shouldn't have closed captioning functionality. And you would think that an audiology office would be conscious of accessibility. Not the case. And I have gone to multiple audiologist offices to just train them on best practices for interacting with clients that have hearing disabilities. So I encourage you both to submit a proposal and we will definitely put that to the top of the list.
That would be such an honor. Thank you so much. And I think that's so funny that I've also found that people in a certain specialty, whether that's healthcare or something else, who are supposed to be, you know, the experts and most inclusive and knowledgeable, sometimes need the most help. You know, they're too close to it that they think they're safe, but there's always more that we can all learn from each other. So I'm so glad that you brought that point across. If you want to hear more conversations like this, hit that like button and subscribe to Disability Clinic for more accessible, entertaining, and educational content. And as always, thank you for watching, listening, and learning.